So our last presentation for today is all about herbs. So we have two master gardeners, Ellen Rye and Ann Limestall, that are going to be talking with us about growing herbs. They are also members of the Monroe County Herb Club. And these two ladies are very creative when it comes to using their herbs with decorating, with recipes, with soap that they make. So today's topic will just give you guys an idea on how to grow and tend those herbs, so that way you can get creative as well and use them in a variety of ways. So we're going to turn it over to them and hear more about growing herbs.
Good morning. This is Ann Limestall, and I've been master gardener in Monroe County for 13 years and also a member of the Monroe County Herb Club. And I thought I'd start this morning by sharing the herb of the year, which is parsley, which is chosen by the International Herb Association. And I was lucky enough to follow a presentation by Ann Corey through the Botanical Garden a couple of weeks ago. And her title was Parsley, It's Easy Being Green, not like Kermit the Frog, who says it's not easy being green. So she talked a little bit about different types of parsley. So she mentioned curly parsley, which is mainly used as garnish on plates. And then she really emphasized the flat leaf or Italian parsley and talked a lot about it and created several dishes which featured parsley. So she made a salad, a tabbouleh with bulgur wheat, and chopped a lot of parsley in there. She made a salsa verde, which was more of an Italian salsa verde, and a pesto with parsley and walnuts, plus other things, of course. And she explained as she was chopping, how vigorously you can chop parsley versus basil. And also the pesto stays a nice green if you use parsley, because basil oxidizes, and after a short time, that pesto isn't really attractive. She talked a little bit about using mainly the leaves, and the stems of the flat leaf are really pretty strong. So she did just leaves. She talked about storing it. If you cut some at home or buy some at the store, put it in a vase or a glass, keep it on the counter if you can. If you're going to refrigerate, pat it very, very dry, and then Ziploc refrigerate. Those were the main ideas. So Ellen, why do you plant an herb garden?
Hi, I'm Ellen Rye. I'm also a master gardener from Waterloo, and I am a member of the Monroe County Herb Club. An herb, that aromatic plant that you can use for scenting, flavoring, cooking, decorating, and medicinal purposes. We're not going to be doing medicinal at all. We're not certified herbalists, so we're just going to be featuring the others. Also, when you buy your plants, you may be using one or more of the parts of the plant. You could be using the seeds, the flowers, the leaves, the stems, or the roots. So as you can see, they're a very versatile plant. Fragrance-wise, there are some that aren't very fragrant, and I usually put them in a different section of my garden because I want the fragrant ones to be out in front where people can enjoy them. And also take note that the foliage is changing on a lot of these plants. They've come out with variegated foliage. For instance, I picked this dill up just yesterday, and it has I think a fiddleback or maidenhair, I'm not sure. So if you're limiting your garden to maybe just one plant, which Ann and I will tell you, there's always room for one more, you might want to do a little searching and a little research, because there's a lot out there to offer. We all know that the bee population has declined, so what better plant to put into your garden than an herb for your bees, your butterflies, and your hummingbirds? I plant a lot of plants just for that purpose. For instance, I plant rue, spelled R-U-E, has a beautiful flower on it. Doesn't smell great, but it attracts those monarch caterpillars. Don't forget your milkweed. That's also great. So think about those things when you're picking up your herbs. Also, when it gets to be hot and dry and you're out there watering, I have noticed that I have to water my flowers sooner than I do my herb plants. So they're very heat tolerant. Another thing, watch your sprays. I know it's easy to run in and spray things, but if you're spraying, for instance, like roses and for your Japanese beetles, then here comes the bee on top of that rose. I was trying to find, we're going to be talking about companion planting a little bit more, that herbs are great as companion planting. I Googled on and found out that they were suggesting chives. Now, don't get the garlic chives, they're too invasive, but I needed to divide my chives anyway. So I dug up a portion of the chives, I put it over between my roses, and I had 4 Japanese beetles that summer. So you have a sheet on companion planting, look it over and investigate. It's worthwhile. Also, okay, I talked about the watering. They're so easy to grow. There's really just 3 things you have to remember. No particular type of soil. They like the sun, but they do not like their feet wet. My husband left a hose on that I didn't know that was leaking, and my lady's mantle was totally destroyed. It doesn't take long if they're sitting in water. So find a place that's not going to happen. I talk about them being tolerant to diseases, and think about it. If you're using them for companion planting, it stands to reason that they would be. Also remember, when you're thinking about your plants, there's always a rule of thumb that your dried plants, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, are more potent than your fresh. And we will be talking about that some more.
What about where are you going to start your garden, your herb garden? If this is your first time, you might want to think about your main reasons for that herb garden. Is it to grow some herbs that you're going to use to cook? So if you can get those close to your kitchen, you're more inclined to use them that way. If you're more interested in aroma, if you can line pathways with them, I just love being able to walk by and just give them a little hug, squeeze. It's fantastic. That's why I love them the most, I think. You need to consider amount of sunlight. It's recommended 6 hours of sunlight. I grow some that don't get 6 hours and they do fine, but that's a recommendation. Ellen mentioned they don't like wet feet, so that's a major thing. They do need water. They're a plant, but you watch that, and if you have a lot of rain, you have to consider that, So that's a big thing. You can add them. This would be like companion planting in a vegetable garden. Put some basil by the tomatoes. Then when you go out and get those tomatoes, you'll get some basil, maybe. You can add them with annuals, flower gardens. So I know you're not supposed to put mint in the ground. I know it. But I like it, and I let it travel where I have annuals in my butterfly garden. So, it's all about what your intention is, what you like. So you don't have to follow every rule, but some are more important than others. If you don't have space outside, you might have appropriate windowsills. Maybe you're in a with not a lot of space. There are ways to handle that. Use some containers. So there are lots of different ways. An idea that I saw recently was making a living wreath, and there's lots of instructions that you can find online. That'd be a neat craft type of thing to do. And so, Ellen, I think, oh no, I'm continuing, sorry. The size of your garden, start small. If you've never had an herb garden, do it small. Don't get carried away. But if you want to preserve parsley, rosemary, and thyme, especially, you'll need more plants. From one little plant like this, you maybe won't be getting enough to do a good amount to preserve. So keep that in mind. All right. Let's see. Yeah, Ellen.
Okay. I would love to have an English garden with all the geometric shapes, but I haven't found that little gardener that's going to come and do it for me. So be realistic when you start your gardens. Just because your neighbor has this huge garden, that may not be for you. And what's going to happen is it's become overgrown. You're going to lose interest and you become very frustrated. So do your own thing. You can kind of cheat on a formal garden. In fact, I saw this in a magazine where they did a diamond shaped out of lettuce. And then the inside, they put their herbs, and then you can fill that in as your veggies. You know, you start with your cooler crops. And I thought, well, how neat to get around that fact that you don't have to be out there trimming all that. The best advice anybody can give you when you're choosing plants, no matter what it is choose a few plants and know everything you can about them. And I know when I first started my herb gardening, I just planted the herbs and enjoyed them. But then later on, you're like, oh, okay, now what can I do with this? So think about that. Your theme gardens, you have some information on this. And also it says one of the things that's on that is a medicinal garden, and that's only if you want to put in the old type medicinal garden that they would have had years ago. So you want to do one little plot medicinal, one for cooking, of that sort. How neat to have your kids or grandkids involved in this and do a spaghetti garden and plant all your herbs that you use for spaghetti. Don't forget, you can have this beautiful foliage from these herbs. So like Ann said, incorporate into your flower garden. Designing, endless. I happen to like raised beds. I like antiques. I like the old gardens. I went to Williamsburg and saw some of these old fantastic gardens. That's what I have. You don't have to have the rectangular shape. You could do a pie shape. I've seen so many different kinds that you can have. I happen to follow the square foot gardener when I originally planted mine years ago, and I use a third peat moss, a vermiculite, and 5 kinds of manure. This isn't for everybody because it's not cheap to do it that way, but it makes a wonderful type of soil that you have to work with. And I like the raised beds. For me, it keeps the weeds out completely. And that might, but if you go that route, know that you can only reach so far in on each side. Don't get a real wide garden that you're having to step inside of it. Make it no more than about 3 feet. See how far that is, and make it comfortable for you, because you're going to be miserable if you're crawling around inside this garden. Also, I saw something the other day at a store, and it was a wagon wheel. And I thought, how cute to put this flat in the ground, grow your herbs in that, or an old ladder. It's just endless on what you can do. And make it easy. Think about yourself. Make it easy, whatever you're going to do. Your sides of your plants, really, really watch that. Ann and I both like Sweet Annie. And you're looking at this little Sweet Annie plant and thinking, oh, how pretty. Well, that little Sweet Annie plant's going to get as tall as I am and look like an evergreen. So be careful. Do your research on this. Yeah. So anyways, requirements, whatever you want in that. As we said, keep those roots out of the water. Color. There are so many different colors, as we were saying before, and they've integrated the different types of foliage. I have a lemon thyme here, which I plant next, as Ann said, along the pathway, and I happen to spray it when I know company's coming, and oh, this lemony smell when they come in, they're like, what is that out there? What is it? This one, I like to find the kind that has a little leaves on it, little leaves, yellow on their leaves. I just think is a little bit prettier. But this Sweet Annie, like I said, just know what you're getting into when you plant some of these. I like to try to get variation like that. And also, if you're going to do like purple basil, know that purple basil, any of the colored plants like that, will not grow as fast as your green plants, because the nourishment that comes out of the ground is also sustaining that purple color in that plant. So remember that. It doesn't mean don't buy purple basil by any means, but think about things like that. We talked about the shape. Pineapple sage. Oh, I love it, but it's going to get big around. It gets fairly tall too, but wonderful for the bees. Don't forget about your creeping plants. I love to put those in my raised beds where they can fall over the edge. And think about that when you're planting, if you're going to be putting up against the house or out in the middle, your tall plants in the center, if you're planting in a garden per se that's out. And then remember your heights of your plants, just like a flower garden. I talked about, where you're going to be planting. And you do have a sheet that does suggest some plants that can do a partial shade. So look into that if you are lacking a lot of sunlight in your garden.
Now about containers. We've mentioned them before a little bit, and they are great for the patio. I think it's kind of a aromatherapy, just sitting out there, and you can, of course, what I do is give them a rub. If you're using large pots, putting them on rollers will allow you to maneuver them around easier. Grouping them, very attractive instead of a pot. A series of pots really looks great. The idea of using clay pots, and I was thinking on my way in, these beautiful pots that you can buy now that are so heavy. They're beautiful, but so heavy, and they're not inexpensive. I like plastic. You can buy beautiful pots now. So I'm thinking of large pots, and I did this last year. So at the bottom of that large pot, I take coffee filters, flatten them out, put that down above the drain holes. Then I take either empty plastic containers or air pillows. That's what I call these. I guess that's what they are. I'm sure everybody has air pillows and packing peanuts. Put those in plastic bags, take up a lot of the space, then put in your potting soil and your plants. It's so much lighter that the raccoons can actually push that pot over. And so you have to put something around the edge to stake them in. So I recommend doing that. And you don't have to water as often if you have a large pot. And we don't want to overwater because they don't like wet feed. So you have to keep that in mind. Let's see. Mixing them with other like annuals and herbs. Another idea is not to over fertilize, because most of these herbs came from areas that had poor soil. So that's why I actually don't fertilize them at all. Give them a haircut, pinch them back, use them. And if you're not going to use, some of them we don't actually use perhaps, but you will get a fuller plant if you give them a shave once in a while. For indoors, if you're going to bring them indoor in the wintertime, I have not had a lot of luck with that, but some people do. Check them for those insects, the frogs, the toads. They can be in there. Best just to keep them in the pot that they're in. Don't be thinking, if you have to, if they're cracking the pot, you do have to transplant, but it's best to keep them over winter in that original pot. Ellen, how do you choose which plants and what seeds?
That's the hard point. And I might add, if you have a strawberry jar that you are using for herbs, it can be a beast to water. So I suggest you get a section of PVC pipe, drill holes in it, put it down the center of your jar and water that way. And you won't have this water gushing out all these little holes and washing out your plant. So try that if you want to use your strawberry jar. I don't particularly grow from seeds. I'm not saying don't do that by all means, but I like so much of everything. And unless you're doing a certain project where you need a lot of like basil, then I would say go ahead. But do remember that if you decide to go that route, you're going to need the grow lights. There's a lot of supplies that you're going to need for this, and you need a space to set all this up. I think what is available, we have so many great nurseries in our area. And right now, the Missouri Botanical Gardens is having their herb sale. It's online, and you'll have a date to pick up. Webster Grove's herb sale, I think, is May the 8th. Check it out, where they're going to have it. But those are places that I go to get something that I can't get locally. I always go to my local nurseries first. And remember, they can be annuals, perennials, and perennials. Choose again with attention to your foliage, the shape, and your purpose, thinking about all that. I know this has happened to me. I've been looking for a certain plant and I'll finally find it. And it will look so pathetic. And I'm thinking, oh, should I buy that? Don't do that, because it's never going to mature. You may be bringing disease into your garden. So just wait. You may find it eventually, or you just wait for next year. But seriously, don't bring anything in that looks like that. I can remember when I first started out and I had this little herb book, I took it with me when I went into the gardens. And you will find that most of the nurseries are so helpful when answering your questions. Don't feel intimidated. The hard part's going to be deciding which one of these 12 basil plants that you want. I mean, cinnamon basil, purple basil, it goes on and on and on. And don't forget your space that you have. Those are really points that you have to think about.
Taking care of that garden, it's like other gardens. There will be weeds. Take care of that. I don't mind weeding personally. Well, when it gets too crazy. But to me, it's time to meditate. I love pulling weeds.
Yeah.
Put some mulch, light mulch. That will help, so you don't have to go crazy with weed removal. If it's really dry, they do need water, although they don't want wet feet, we've mentioned before. Give them a haircut. They will grow better. This is the time of year you want to divide. If you have something that survived and you can see, like other plants, this is the time to cut it and transplant. Spring cleanup, pruning, those are big things right now. And I think everybody's aware of that. If you have a garden, yeah, you're out there trying to rake and remove some henbit and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Lots of henbit.
Yeah. So Ellen, if you have a lot of herbs and you want to dry them or preserve them, how do you do that?
Okay. As Ann was saying, if you're going to bring that pot in and try to winter it over, kind of look to see what's in your soil. I have brought in some truly terrifying things. So kind of just look around in there a little bit. If you're digging up a plant, acclimate it for a couple weeks before you bring it in. Don't wait till it's too late and you're rushing out to pop this plant up and then bringing it in. I have wintered over lavender for about 3 years. In the 4th year, I lost it. As she said, unless you have a greenhouse, it's may not be that easy. You can use, like I said, for flavorings, fragrance, potpourris, and teas. When to harvest, you will have some of your information say, well, a couple weeks before it flowers. Don't do that. Don't put yourself up for that stress level. I, like Ann, go out on occasion just to be out there. And if I see that a plant needs to be trimmed, I cut it and go down to that leaf node and cut it. Like on here, I would go down to a leaf node and cut it off. I always take rubber bands with me And I'll take several, maybe 5 or so branches, if you have that many. Put a rubber band around it if you're going to hang it to air dry it, because the stems shrink and it will fall through. I have beams in my kitchen, and I hang them from my beams in my kitchen, and I have this wonderful aroma. There's other ways to do it. If you go out together, you wait till after the dew's off. It has to be dried. But I always think like this. I'm bringing in this plant that's been outside, the dust, the dirt, whatever is on it. I would much rather go out the night before, take a hose, put it on shower, and clean that plant up, and top, bottom, and don't put a hard force of water on it, and let it go. And the next morning it's dry, it's ready to go when you bring it in. You can take a screen and you can put your stalks into that screen. If you're drying dill seed, you're going to have to put that in a bag, because the seeds will fall out, and then tie it shut and then hang it up. Blanching, you can blanch like basil, stick it in your boiling water for a couple seconds, then put it into your ice water and then freeze it. You can use a dehydrator. You can use your microwave. You can use your oven, and look up your time, because a microwave goes very fast and oven is a very low temperature. You can freeze on top of a cookie sheet. When you're done, when you're bringing in and you're harvesting, be sure to date it. You can put little containers like this from Walmart or whatever. Put on what it is, because after you process these, they're not going to look like anything that you grew out there. So put what it is and the date on it. That's no matter whatever you use, if you're just drying and putting in containers. Lavender, they say not to cut lavender for 2 years. And by all means, when you're cutting it, when you do plan to cut it, do not cut down to the woody part. There's some neat things, if all goes well, and according to the pandemic, we plan to do this in a 2-part series, and in fall we plan to be cooking and have dishes for you to taste. So hopefully we can do that, but we have to wait and see.
In here.
Yes. So we'll talk more about, we'll have some of the dried things and that, and also we'll have crafts that. So we want to get you started on selecting your plants with that in mind for your dishes. If you're making pesto, hey, mix it all together. Do it right away, and then put it in your cans and freeze it, and you'll have it. I do my herbal butter during the summer, and I give it as Christmas gifts. You're not going to go out there at the end of the year and get it. And it does freeze. And we'll talk about herbal butters that day. So try that. Like I said, you wash it and drain it and blot it. But like I said, I go out the night before and do that. Heat, like I said, the microwave goes very fast and you have to watch it. Never, ever eat anything that you've dried in silica sand. Don't do that. It's just for decorative purposes only. So don't ever do that. And what about storing them?
Well, a lot of herbs that you have dried, you could just put in some kind of container, airtight. If you have a vacuum sealer, you might try this. Mm-hmm. My husband's always vacuum sealing everything else. Why not herbs? So that would be a way you might try. After a year, and Ellen mentioned right on it is and when, after a year, if you can, their potency is, and don't do the chopping and crushing until you're ready to use. I think people know that, but it makes a worldly difference. And to me, it's always seemed counterintuitive that you would use, what is it? Fresh versus dried. We would use more. What do we use more? We want more flavor. I would think you would want to use fresh. No, use the dry. It's stronger. It's concentrated. You know, it just seems counterintuitive to me. I got the fresh stuff. Why would I use it? Well, if I don't have the fresh stuff, think about the amount you're using. So herbs need to be dry. You can freeze them. They change color. Might not look like you would like them to look, but that's good way. So we've mentioned dating, labeling, so on. So I think that's about it.
Yeah. If you're going to make potpourri, dried herbs, flower petals, spices, your fixative, great Christmas gift to have. There's lots of things that you can be doing ahead of time. The lavender ones, if you've never tried those, you're going to have to do that when the lavender, just to get the head start on that. You don't go out there and think you're going to use your dried lavender for those. If you're going to make those as gifts, they have to be fresh, because when you bend those stems back over, that has to be able to bend, because it will break. It won't work with the dried at all. So we hope we will be able to do cooking.
Yeah.
We'll see. Are there any questions?